My rich boss took me for granted, so I clocked her tea in front of all her friends. When I was 23, I needed a job and spent 3 weeks asking families on Indeed if they needed a nanny. And that's how I got my first job as a nanny to a rich family. I'm talking $50,000 birthday parties, owned 2 private jets, rich. One afternoon, as I got ready to go home when my shift ended, my boss Helen asked me to stay. I need someone to organize my charity gala, she said, sliding an $800 check across the marble counter. You can even attend as a guest, but just don't tell anyone you work for me as a nanny. I instantly knew it was because she wanted to take credit for hosting the party, even though I'd do all the work. This seemed a little strange at first, but still I accepted, mainly because I was hoping to meet my 6'5" man in finance at the gala. The next 3 weeks of gala planning were a nightmare, and while I was drowning in choosing color patterns and catering menus, I kept overhearing Helen on the phone with her rich friends that she was so desperate to impress. She'd say things like, "I'm juggling 3 babies while planning this whole event myself. I don't know how I do it." My stomach would twist every time she took all the credit, but I kept telling myself the money made it worth it. But the more I worked for her, the more Helen started changing. She went from being sweet and soft-spoken to snapping at me for arranging flowers wrong. One day, she actually threw a water bottle at my head because I wasn't setting the table fast enough, and her kids noticed too. They came to me crying one afternoon, asking why mommy was being so mean to everyone. Then came the night of the party. I ordered an Uber Black and arrived at Helen's driveway right when the party started. I was right by the creme brulee dessert when Helen tapped me on the shoulder to introduce me to everyone. "Everyone, this is my friend Millie, my name," she announced to a group of women. The conversation flowed normally at first, but as soon as there was a pause in the conversation, Helen striked. "You know, Millie here had her first baby 2 years ago and still doesn't know how to change a diaper properly." She was doing everything she could to make sure these women were entertained, including making fun of me about things that weren't true. I forced myself to smile through the embarrassment, but she continued. "Millie literally can't get her kids to stop crying without calling her nanny. Remember that time your nanny didn't answer and you called me begging to come over and help you?" More laughter, then the killing blow. One woman touched Helen's arm admiringly. "I don't know how you do it. 3 babies for 3 years without a single nanny. You're an inspiration." Helen was radiating with false pride. Well, my parenting classes finally paid off. Something inside me snapped. I'd been practically raising her kids for months while she took credit for everything I did. I excused myself politely and found the kids in their playroom. What I did next wasn't my proudest moment, but Helen had pushed me too far. I was ready to make her kids cry to show everyone that I was the one who'd raised Helen's kids. I made scary funny faces until they went pale with fear. "Wah, wah!" Within seconds, all 3 of the kids were crying loud enough to hear from the party. Exactly what I wanted. I walked back to the group, fighting to keep my voice innocent. "Hey Helen, I think your kids are crying. Eva, why don't you show us what those parenting classes taught you and calm them down?" Half the party was already turning to watch as she walked toward the playroom. "Yes, you should," one of her friends exclaimed. "We could learn a thing or two." She walked over and picked up her oldest and immediately held him wrong. "Wah!" His screaming somehow got even louder. "Maybe she needs help," someone whispered. Helen's face went from pink to red. She tried bouncing him, but it was all wrong. Too aggressive. I saw one woman pull out her phone, pretending to text, but obviously recording. Helen noticed too. Her hands started shaking. She set him down and grabbed the youngest, but he was now screaming my name and pointing at me, wanting me to hold him. "Oh my gosh!" someone gasped. "She doesn't know what she's doing." The whispers spread like wildfire. "She said she taught parenting classes. This is embarrassing." Helen heard every word. She looked around the room desperately at all these women she'd tried so hard to impress, now watching her fail at the one thing she'd claimed to be perfect at. "Helen dear, do you need—" Someone started. "I've got it," Helen snapped, her voice cracking. She tried to hold them again, but the middle child pushed her away. "Not mommy! I want Millie!" he screamed. The room went dead silent. "Millie! Millie!" All 3 started chanting, reaching for me, not her. I waited just long enough for everyone to see how bad of a mother she was, then walked over and gathered all 3 kids in my arms. I had them laughing within seconds. The second they were calm, Helen rushed over and literally tried to pull them from my arms. "Look guys, I did it," she announced to the group. "I told you the parenting classes paid off." She was trying to take credit for calming them down, but no one was listening to her anymore. They were now surrounding me, offering me jobs. "Are you available? I'll pay triple what Helen pays. I now make $300,000 a year. Thanks, Helen."